hopefully you can hear me. Shahnawaz Khan, thank you so much for alerting me to that. Otherwise, we would have gotten the whole stream and I would have noticed. Yeah, I should have been better
To
about that.
summarize,
That's my
I
fault.
am likely running for city council, and after 2 months of successful Green Party local organizing, though I wouldn't say we're established local yet, until we go a whole year of consistent, meetings, and we've actually done something, because everyone's very much chomping to do something, but sort of like there's this. To me, the thing that we need to do is the kind of boring uh drudgery work of actually kind of building an organization and doing organizing. Some people's ideas are very much more the activist variety. Colin suggests doing like workshops and things that people that will help people, or like kind of disseminate information that people would like to have. I'm, of course not opposed, but it's sort of like, but again, you're saying that because there are other orgs doing that, and you would just like there to be more of it, like how to build your own air filter with a fan and a few jerry rigging. And I don't know. Meanwhile, I would like to door knock for New York Health, because I think everyone can. That's we should do something that is in the zeitgeist, so that we don't have to explain a lot to people. And when the project is, let's do something where we explain a lot to people,
Yeah, that's never off to a good start.
because Colin is one of the heads, COVID heads, I could say, who's still very much like we're in the middle of a pandemic. It costs lives to not mask all the time and not have to mandate our mask, because the more people wear masks, the more people feel like, okay, I'll wear a mask myself, because it is sort of a peer pressure thing. At our social
For
event,
sure.
if this guy isn't there, sorry, I should be bleeping myself, not using names. Um,
Yeah.
then no one masks, although one person did. So I should have masked, but again, it's like it is, especially in a crowded place, a loud crowd place. It's ironic. That's where people can't hear me if I'm wearing a mask.
Yep.
And this also happens even when it's in our little library meeting space, and I'm wearing a mask, for the sake of it, and also because it's December and it is flu season, and
Yeah.
everyone like half the people at work are getting sick somehow,
Well,
in some way.
it
And
also
I
just
don't want to, and I haven't caught anything,
that's good.
thankfully. And I would like that to continue. I went the whole year without getting any cold whatsoever.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's lucky. I gotta. Yeah, I guess it wasn't bad. It only lasted a day, but that day sucked.
that's usually what happens if I do get sick, but I don't usually count that. It's usually just a bad weekend.
Yeah.
Sick to me is like 3 days where I'm out of commission, and then 2 weeks where I have a cough, and it just never goes away.
Sure.
Something that affects me for a whole month. Then, yeah. So anyway, that's so a little quick summary.
Yeah. 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 And my summary is finished up my last semester of grad school. Didn't care for either class. Did policy, which I knew too much about, and research, which I don't really care to know so much about. So that's it. So this semester should be a little more interesting. It's leadership and um, grief counseling. So that should be good. Actually, getting into some counseling techniques finally.
So your degree you're pursuing is for social work,
Social
if I
work, yeah,
understand.
but by the
Okay.
end, I'll be licensed social worker. I'll be able to do therapy. Will not be able to prescribe drugs or anything like that, but basically, I can do
Right.
whatever a therapist can do.
Hmm.
So
Certainly be able to make that more accessible to more people,
right,
within a non-healthcare or healthcare system
right,
context. Because even when it is, you have, well, if people are schizophrenic, they don't want to interact with institutions,
for sure.
or anytime they do, they get aggro about it. Um, which was the case with somebody I'm cutting uh, a relationship with.
Gotcha.
So, um, if we want to do any business, we got some videos
Sure.
to sort of in the last 3 months. One of which is actually from before the election, but it's relevant because it brings up Jan 6, which to me is just another date. I even forgot, like, oh, people are treating this like the anniversary of some like big event. And it's mostly because we just had the election officiating happen in
All right.
Congress
Yeah. The
with
certification on that same fateful anniversary.
with no drama, and because it usually isn't a thing of
Yeah.
drama.
Well, usually, I mean, most people didn't know what day or the
Yeah,
certification happened, or
but it was
even
interesting.
aware that
Yeah,
that process took place. So yeah.
but that's why direct action is interesting. That brings it. It's the point of it is to bring attention to something that usually is obscured or in the background, but it's still very much part of the process of the system, the status quo,
Right.
and the people kind of treat it like this is the process of democracy. It's like,
Yep. Yeah, and they feel so warm
come
and
on.
fuzzy about being a participant, and you
They
know,
don't really, but it's odd that they would post like they do.
maybe it's
Because
just
I
cold
guess
comfort. I
it
don't
makes
know.
them feel they would feel worse if they didn't, or
Yeah.
they have to comment, and I think it's just a matter of feeling superior to Trumpers, but even Trumpers aren't feeling so great,
Yeah, that's been kind of the
and
most interesting aspect of all this is that, they haven't really taken much of a victory lap yet. I don't see the same fired up crowds that were so hot when he first got into office. That's been
well,
kind of weird.
because in the same way that like the seesaw of calcified politics, that each side is just going to just be more disenfranchised and disaffected, because even when they think they're doing something disruptive and making a change, it's not changing, and then they're left to think what to do. And so it's immediate that the most bored will turn to terrorism. um Chris Cotone was making a good point about, he was using it talking in the framing of Hamas, that their October 7th, their terrorist attack on October 7th of last year was, when you turn to terrorism, it's an admission that you are politically failing, that you couldn't use any other levers of power to make an impact. So you turn to terrorism.
Uh-huh.
And maybe, it's interesting, there is a lack of left-wing terrorism in America, and that's kind of because we're always sort of plugging away at the levers of power in whatever way is expedient or available. I think, as Catrone and Douglas Lane was putting it, they're sort of agreeing that we're all Marxists in theory, but anarchists in practice. That's not quite true for government socialists, but government socialists are barely, they're not being Marxist when you're endorsing Democrats and trying to play that game, because you're definitely not trying to
Yeah.
play a different game. But if you are trying to play a different game, you're usually doing it in some anarchist way, whether that be through tenant organizing or unionizing or whatever. It's still a sort of form of anarchism, and not like trying to do some big party
Yeah, it's not making the
thing.
vanguard party to then take over
Yeah,
the system.
even though Occupy was like anarchist, vanguardist, but also volunteerist.
Yeah.
So it wasn't collective; it was individual. Anarchists are individualist communists, and to have a collectivist communism is something that some online or figures are kind of struggling towards, but just like it's just a media project. It's nothing. Um, can it even exist in America? That seems to be the problem. That we're working with these
That's
old
fair. Yeah.
problems, and Catrone's idea is that we have the same problems as 150 years ago, but the way we deal with them has degraded with each generation. And that's sad,
It is sad.
and it doesn't make me feel very optimistic, uh, because And another aspect of this was a different stream from Mr. Varn, forget his first name. And he's another guy like philosopher king in that orbit. And he was reviewing a essay from 6 years ago called The Four Tendencies of the American Left. And it was basically a case for base building. And then a response essay to that, which the notes I typed up somewhere, but it's not in front of me. But the four tendencies are essentially like government socialists, which are your kind of entryists.
Mhm.
So they're socialists in thought, but pretty centrist or left centrist in practice. But just think DSA.
Sure.
Then you have your kind of dirtbag activist, like direct action people who, it's just about protesting the right way, and all they do is protest. Then another tendency is your academics who, or they're organizers and they're independent, but because of their class background, like when they organize, they never have a material stake in what they're organizing. So they're usually not that successful. Or it's a media or education consciousness raising project that, is what it is. And then, but number 4 is base building. And this was like kind of all the rage between 2016 and 2020. And it was being developed, and it was sort of formed by the existence of this thing called the Marxist Center.
Okay.
I covered their formation in the convention they did in 2018 on my show in 2018. They held it in Denver. And it was basically a confederation of all of these grassroots groups that were either doing tenant organizing, unionizing, or mutual aid, and they were all collectives of some sort. And they were all essentially, little anarchist cliques. But they were trying to organize, and but half of the membership of this Marxist Center was in the Philadelphia Socialists. So it was very much dominated by this Philadelphia organization. And they were doing tenant organizing. And their base building was like, we build the building blocks of a party, of a collectivist, communist politics or leftist politics that doesn't devolve or isn't made up of individualistic and breaks away from the leftist activist culture that's just been on zombie mode since the 60s.
Sure.
And I participated in because it's all we've got in a way. And because all the other 3 tendencies make up this activist culture. And we need to break away from that. The irony is that between 2018 and 2022, the base building tendency got completely absorbed into the other 3. Because when it came to doing anything, the only structures with resources or history or anything or people where people could even go were the other 3 tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
Your DSA, your Green Party, and so on. Your Food Not Bombs even.
Oh.
And the Marxist Center. And the other thing that they didn't count on before 2020 was the pandemic. And that thinking that, and this was something that I was sort of skeptical about when it was happening, thinking like this talk of like the explosion of mutual aid and energy towards community help during the pandemic and other crises, these disasters, is like a form of building socialism. And I'm like, no, it's sapping away the resources to do any struggle. That's the case Varna was making, where like what happened to this base building tendency. It turns out they used all these resources that were going to go into tenant organizing and building like worker power, went into just surviving.
Mm.
And it sapped all the wind. A lot of people were active in addressing immediate needs. But when it comes down to like subsistence needs, then you can't go beyond subsistence. Just meeting these basic needs. So that's why I kind of don't see such mutual aid as actually being the building blocks of the next system. we're just surviving within the current one on the scraps. We're not making new production. We're not changing the means. Oh, what was the way Douglas Varn put it? The the method of relationships, where like currently it's money.
Sure.
The thing that mediates
Haha.
our society, the driving force of history, which is capital.
Yeah.
Like, we can't replace that if we're just surviving, or being petty bourgeois, no matter how like you slice it. Like, if you're doing co-op work, you're just trying to form non-capitalist employment, escape capitalist employment. That's not replacing capitalist employment.
No.
um, if you're unionizing, if you do it for its own sake, you just become another gang like all the other unions did. If it's for its own sake. So the advice from Catron is, don't do things for its own sake. The struggle for socialism should be behind everything, including who you make compromises with, who you work with, who you talk to. Don't block anyone off, because don't make enemies until they become enemies. As far as the struggle for socialism is concerned. But of course, he's not a practitioner. He's not a guy who's organized anything. So, but it's all sort of hearsay. But it's interesting thoughts.
Makes sense though.
Because I need that kind of thinking to kind of pull together, like, how do I tackle like city politics in my city? The different classes of people, the different kinds of people, and how they relate to politics at all, and how in door knocking, it's just like, you just get a lot of people who just do not want to be bothered. Um, and no matter how desperate they are, or if anything, it's worse with the desperate. The desperate will not give you any time. They'll take your time. They sock it up, like the psychic vampire, which I don't like that lingo. But there is sort of a contradiction in that the people who want to be the most self-sufficient and don't want anyone's help and want to help others end up needing the most help themselves.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people avoid that by being pretty bourgeois and just saying, I'm just going to focus on my individual retirement. And that means working for 30 years and just like doing some charity along the way. But otherwise, I can't think about changing the world,
Sure.
because my retirement depends on the stock market going up, and or things just being like, or assuming that things are not going to change in any substantial way. Because even if there is a huge disaster and Florida sinks, um, capitalists will generate profit from it,
Oh yes, they will.
and they can
They love
integrate
a good disaster to profit from.
they can
For sure.
integrate the sinking of cities into their well, not their personal means of profit, but the logic of capital
Oh yeah.
can sublimate it, and
Sounds
that's
like
and
you
that's
guys
enough.
need a good seawall. Sounds like you guys need to fill up those porous rocks underneath all your bedrock. Sounds like you guys need to just lift the whole city up a few feet.
Why don't we pick up the city and move it over there?
Uh, very much.
So yeah, that was just some YouTube videos I've listened
That sounds
to,
very interesting. I need to watch
among
more
others.
of Doug Lane, especially when he's got Chris Catrone on, because
That's the stuff where I actually have to stop and I want to take notes.
yeah,
Everything else
yeah,
is
yeah,
just sort of conversations you can zone out to about,
sure,
we want to break from the Dems, but are we doing that? Are we going to do that? It's just like, how do we do it? How do we do politics while doing that? It's just even the revolutionaries aren't quite clear.
yeah. Well, I mean, so many
Or
things.
they'll say they're Green Party members, but like, there's obstacles, of course.
Yeah, it seems like endless obstacles.
Endless.
Um,
And before you overcome one, it's 10 years have passed. and
Right? Yeah,
and
more have
another five
popped
new
up.
ones.
Here's
But I suppose the struggle for socialism is a way of focusing, so you don't get hung up on the day to day, the year to year
yeah,
bullshit. Whether what terrorist attack has happened or
sure.
what the right wing is doing. It's like there's too
What the
much.
election results were,
When
sure.
I see others, when I see like kind of other leftist comrades, fellow travelers, kind of focusing on that, I'm just like, we're starving here.
Hmm.
We got people in our community who are truly helpless or beyond help, and it's we've got a whole month of code blue ahead of us here in Albany. I looked at the the weather projection. It's going to be below freezing for most of the rest of the month, which is it's actual winter. Whoa!
Yeah.
But homelessness is up, and so I think there is news of like an actual like established new shelters, new spaces for people to go to. I think, but again, I think one upgrade to Trinity Alliance is probably going to take a year though. I don't know if they're just. I think they were just reconfiguring the building they have so that it could accommodate as an emergency shelter, but also kind of like a place for people to go to in case of any kind of disaster
Mm,
in the neighborhood, because it is in one of the more low lying parts of the city.
sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, I looked up how to get mediator training. I think that would be achievable. Um, oh yeah, another big piece of news for me personally is it's closing some doors, but it's sort of necessary, which is my mother does not want to pay taxes anymore. She's retired. She's moved out of these two row houses. She wants to cut herself. She's not, especially now that she's not here. She doesn't want to think about it anymore. Can't be a landlord. Doesn't have the heart for it or temperament. So she wants to sell the buildings, including the family home.
Hmm.
And although she's not really good at any real estate whatsoever, um, I'm just to step up and buy the family home. When
Hey.
I'm already here, and
All
I don't know
right.
what kind of good deal, but she basically has 20 grand in debt, and she wants that gone yesterday. So I'm going to use a lot of my savings that I've been saving up. So it's not going to go into some new co-op or cooperative engagement or, you know, those are possibilities that I was saving up for,
Sure.
but I'm sort of letting go of that.
At the same time, it frees up future funds
For
for you that you won't be putting towards
I suppose, it depends on
land,
how long
right?
it takes for me. Like she wants me to take on debt to like, a 5 year, 10-year mortgage or something. It
Yeah.
won't be a 30-year. I'm not gonna pay something that long because that's a lot of interest. I want to keep that interest minimized.
Well, sure it is.
Now I can cover half the cost of whatever, she needs for this building. Like let's say it's 120. Pay her 6 grand, 60, and the other 60 is for a mortgage. But I also sort of maybe take something bigger so I have another 10 grand for repairs and another
Sure.
upgrades I
Yeah.
actually could make to this building that my parents never did. The one was like we got a new furnace a few
Yeah.
years ago, so he's like, I wouldn't sell this to you, Dan, if we didn't replace the furnace. So, and since that sort of like there's some big hefty items, any new spending on this house will be of the upgrade variety.
Nice.
Um,
Is that
Basically making updating the windows,
sure?
making them actually, insulating, things like that. Maybe the floors, it's not that much of a bother, but
Yeah.
and there is enough space here if I move this office to upstairs into the bedroom because I do have that space because I've spent a year decluttering the house. So when my current roommate leaves, there'll be a lot of room to work with.
Nice.
Um, get a new roommate, someone who's actually consistent and can actually pay rent. Um, and maybe even contribute more into some kind of future project. But that's all in the future and unsettled. But there's it could be a 3-person house, um, sharing, because if this could be a third bedroom.
Sure. Well, exciting
Uh,
though. Is there any?
it sort of is. It's exciting at least in that I can be creative with the backyard,
Okay.
and we are moving towards selling next door to the local land trust.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
They took a look at it and they got back last week about, or a few days ago, Friday, about a purchase contract. Because the sooner they can get confirmation, they can't buy it unless they get the rehab grant, and they can't apply for that until February. So it's sort of a buy this within before August, or we settle. You know, Um, Depends on what they're offering, but that's the next step. But I heavily encourage my mom to just whatever it is. I think we should just do it. It would certainly take care of her dad, and then some, because I
Nice.
think it would just be going to her. Both buildings are already in trust, though. In case she died, it wouldn't be taken by somebody else. um, but in this case, transferring it to me. And then maybe I'd use it as a base for a housing a real estate cooperative, because it only really needs one to start with, one property perhaps, and then
Yeah.
any rent I collect doesn't go to my bank account, it goes to this thing, which would take a long time to accrue for a second property. But hey, once it
You
started,
got to start the
I get
momentum somehow.
I get
Yeah.
grants, I get investors, I get community partners, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But again, that's all hypothetical.
Sure. But I think
I've
that is the
got
way to do it.
party, I got party building in front of me, and changing the city government to make it easier to start such things, or even possible, because right now it isn't. And I think that's sort of my personal agenda there. But it's
How
also an agenda any other kind of left wing person can say, yeah, I'm for that.
are you saying housing
Um,
cooperatives are not possible in your city?
they don't exist.
Oh.
So it's just there's no precedent,
Oh,
and
that's
they're
surprising.
possible. Well, here's the thing. So I think you just need the resources to hire the lawyer to figure it out.
Sure.
Because at the moment, what I'm hearing about the other large group that are trying to incorporate a co-op around three houses that are adjacent, one of them has always been kind of the anarchist commune house called Space House. Basically co-house, co-op house.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Co-housing.
but it's basically like owned by one person who just rents it to like 10 different hippies, or crust punks, whatever,
Sure.
you know people on the margins.
Yep.
And but then there's some drama, but I haven't gotten the details, so I can't go into it. But they've acquired or will be acquiring the adjacent buildings, and these are like three unit, not row houses, but they could connect them eventually. But anyway, they're taking forever. They've been talking about it for years now, but they're working with like the pro bono lawyers from the law school,
Sure.
and I think it's just they're only getting a few hours a month from these people, I suppose. So it's just like it's taking forever.
It's probably heavy turnover then too
Um,
if it's the law school.
that as well, and I
Yeah.
think that's what keeps happening. By the time the one person helping makes headway, they graduate.
Yeah.
Which is also why, to go into another tangent about organizing, there will always be somebody, and multiple people usually, who actually says like, we need to get back on campus, Green Party or any kind. We need to get back with the campus. We need a campus group. I am less enthusiastic. I'm not enthusiastic about doing that, for the reason that, again, the turnover is high, the return is
Fair.
actually lower than it seems. Um, in the case of one local member, yes, he was the leader of the last Green Party chapter there that lasted 2 years or something, but that was back
Sure.
in 2016.
Yeah.
That was the last time we had active Greens. We haven't had them since. And since then, college students are more and more like any other person in that they have no free time.
Uh-huh.
I think there's an assumption that college students make like good apprentice activists because they have more free time,
Well,
and that was sometimes that's the case for me.
true.
Um, but I think with more, I don't know. Whenever I talk to, if I interact with college students, I sort of get a sense that like they are too busy,
Yeah,
or
that's fair.
like the general public, only 5% are politically engaged. It just seems like more college students are engaged, but it's really the same proportion.
You mean they're not all just learning Marxism on day one and hot to join a leftist org?
Here's another thing mentioned by Varn, and it was mentioned in both of the essays about the tendencies of the left back in 2018. That the problem with the American left, no, sorry, it's just it's an explanation of why we're always infighting, is that all of these different tendencies, groups, orgs, whatever, are competing for a very limited
Hmm.
pool of
Hmm.
potential customers,
That's a
which
huge
are
point. Yeah.
the 10% of active college students.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're always we're just competing for them
Yeah.
and their attention. Because anytime there's some movement, it starts with them or the youth. And we're like, we have to hop on that and gobble them, and we have to get them as customers. Meanwhile, there are literally 100 woke 50-year-olds in the neighborhood. Just they're not waiting for something to do. They have their own lives and they're super busy. And so it's not really about activating them, but they could give you a few dollars.
Sure.
And they could
Like it
say,
plug in somehow.
you a few conversations, and they'll say, you've earned my vote.
Sure.
And I guess, yeah, you need a bunch of college students to go door knock and earn their vote.
Yeah.
So it becomes sort of another Rube Goldberg machine where we have to do this in order to do this, in order to do this, in order to do that, and then we'll have someone on the council, and then the next Rube Goldberg machine will begin. And I guess maybe this is just how I think of it in my mind, where I'm trying to like have some like number of steps that are followable, and I can explain to people what I'm doing or what could be done. But then in practice, it's all just like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, and it's a bit of a mess. Um, and in reality, with how government, works, it's like there's the propaganda of looking competent and you got a handle on things, but then it's really just like something happens. Let's check with the city council, the city lawyers, and then an emergency meeting is called. This was just about our Click Fix app, the thing that you use on the phone or the website to. It's a separate app, I guess, but you can report potholes or
Yeah.
any kind of. There's a whole list of categories.
Easy
Anyway,
reporting of maintenance
somebody had a
deficit. Yeah.
motorcycle accident on one of our main streets, and it must have been before the reconstruction when there were still cobblestones there, which were designed to in it was the old way of the city thinking, where we just make the streets shit so that people can't speed on them,
It's
or it
natural
just
speed bumps. Yeah.
it doesn't inhibit people from speeding. It just means that if you like hit them, you'll hurt your
Yeah,
car,
you're
or in
right.
the case of
You'll
this
think
motorcycle,
twice.
hurt himself. I don't know the real case, but he won his case against the city,
Hmm.
um, that Click Fix counts as written notice. So if the city
Uh-huh.
doesn't address it promptly, then the city is liable.
City's liable then. Yeah.
So the response from the city to this court response hearing decision. Good to see my housemates alive. Haven't seen him in 2 days. The he The response was to shut down the app,
I was gonna say. I bet that's what they did. They just withdrew the program.
and everybody's like, "What the hell?" and the instinctual, like, crimey take is like, the city can't fix potholes,
Yep.
so rather than saying we
Uh,
can't keep up with fixing potholes, it's like, we won't accept your complaints about potholes, or the suggestion box is full. I will burn the suggestion box. Look, oh, now there's no suggestions. Now there was an
imagine that.
emergency.
Problem solves itself.
Imagine how this was fixed. So the council called an emergency meeting, and I got the email with the agenda and the new language for the ClickFix app, which just changed that the receiver of the complaint or request is not the department head, but now city council. So city council gets the did you freeze? No.
No, no, no. I
Um,
was reading a message
so
quick.
instead of the city council, the city council, not council, council, the city's lawyers, they receive the request, and I guess they review it, and by them getting it, it's still official documentation, and then it can get passed to the department. Because before, I guess it was up to the department, and the department was, well, they have their own priorities of what they
Yeah,
fix and how fast.
it's basically a glorified suggestion box. Yeah,
In a way.
yeah, yeah.
Though in my, observation, well, I put in a request, and wouldn't you know it, it was fixed within a week. Or at least a pole was put up. I don't know if the street sign got hit by a car and it was bent in half and down. And they replaced the pole, and I don't know if the street sign was back up yet. So anyway, potholes is what people care about more because of those you can damage a vehicle on. What's interesting is that for our property, our city taxes are less than 2,000, and that's city and county. So I'm sort of like, people are complaining about this. Now I know, like, if you combine it with all the other levels of taxes, state, federal, it can be add up if your salary is 50 grand or whatever. But it's just, I don't know. It's just really mad about it. That much, compared to like what you pay in rent, assuming you own your house. But then again, normies are terrible financially. They need all of these different articles and how to and all the fucking financial advice books
Mm.
that fill Barnes and Noble or whatever, whole bookshops. Um, because they just, yeah, they don't plan. They waste money. I this sorry my this you like this my coworker, we have brown bag lunch series, so we take turns doing kind of a lunchtime lecture between office mates, so we can cover fun topics or whatever floats our boat.
Yeah, that's cool.
This time it was one of my coworkers. A His background is in meteorology. His, I guess he's our age or a little older. He counts himself as a millennial. He must be an older millennial. But he's also single like me, I guess. And his talk was, don't buy a house! Explanation point. Why not to don't why you shouldn't buy a house. Now, the humor of it is that everyone else in the office besides me owns a house, and they've had troubles.
Oh,
Uh,
it's
from got sunburnt painting my house to tree
got
fell on my house,
sunburned painting my house.
to various other
Oh, what
things.
a life!
And of
How do
course,
they
we're all
survive?
living in these exurban areas, so
Mm-hmm.
like, whatever. Um, they're all their salaries are 85 grand plus, so cry me a river. But hey, they're not actually crying; they're just laughing about it. But Paul's sorry, my coworker's case is like, he saves a lot of money renting, and when something goes wrong, I call maintenance and they fix it, and it's not my responsibility. And he did some math. Again, these are statisticians that I'm working with. He did some math about, like, what I pay in rent over 30 years or 10 years was, less than what somebody buying a 300 grand mortgage would be paying, especially with all the interest. There's no interest in paying rent. Now, he's not factoring in raises of rent, but apparently his rent has stayed below $1,000. So
Ah,
that's
man, in this day and age, that is pretty
which all
good.
of us are like, what? Because even the affordable housing in Albany, I have the here. Let me show you. I took it from City Hall. It was basically a list of the affordable units available. It's probably not an extensive all like list, but it's at least there. It's available for people to come by, um, getting city services. Here's the next place, but all the rents were above $1,000.
Yeah, yeah,
Only the studio was like 900, which was like unbelievable to me like 8 years ago. But these were
yeah.
like the new fancy. like studios built by a developer.
When was the last time?
Um,
Yeah, I've lived in a couple places not too long ago, like within the last 10 years, that have been below 1,000. One of them was rat infested, like literally rat infested, and the other one didn't even have a front door buzzer, so and it was not in a
a
great area
lot of
either.
housing units in Albany, and this is it's because I was door knocking around, and I forget the last time I was really noticing it, but what was I say last door knocking? Well, anyway, I was door knocking for something, and it was just there's a lot of units that just don't actually have doorbells, so I'm knocking on so many. Maybe it was when I was running for mayor, and I'm just having flashbacks to that. Or some petitioning, but I haven't done petitioning by door. Um, but I'll be doing a lot more of that this year if I follow through with a commitment to run for office.
Yeah,
Because truly, a ward race should be very feasible for me. I think it's just like to do it right and to ensure a victory. I'm just like laying out everything I have to do. Now I have an assistant basically in the form of a manager. If he can do the scheduling and the kind of planning of events and things that need to be done with dates, that will take a lot off my mind. I suppose I can focus on just my my contacting. He can contact places and orgs, and I'll contact individual people to ask for their help. And and devoting an hour of that to every day is like a month of work to me. That could be March, but again, to me, it's like I can do one thing per month. You know, one general goal,
yeah,
and I do that for 9 months straight. That's what's daunting to me. But it's sort of like once the hard work of the spring is done, sort of just spending 3 months to basically door knock everybody and maybe pump out another newsletter or two. That could be all that my campaign is, and it doesn't have to be more than that. Because that's any other person who won this seat did not do more than just door knock the um, regular voters, which amount to 500 people.
yeah,
But a lot of them are conservative. So it's also like I would need to door knock a lot more, and I would want to. But there is a kind of recognition that a lot of people are not joiners, and a lot of people are not regular voters, and you're not going to change people's habits within one cycle. But you could if you plug at it for multiple cycles or years. Um, at least that's what the UK guide was sort of getting at. But that's where it just becomes sort of like a slog of many years of kind of drudge work
yeah.
before you can get to anything exciting.
Right.
Meanwhile, you kind of got people who are kind of stepping up to run for council and they have no prior political experience whatsoever,
Right. And there's breeze through with their
or an
money or
internship
connections.
here,
Yeah.
or an internship here. No, it's not always a matter of being well moneyed.
Oh,
It's just that
connections
like
too.
they some kind of connection. Um, like I met a guy at City Hall last night. He seems sort of a moderate, but like he didn't laugh when I made sort of a radical quip, and so I was testing him that way, I guess. But he was kind of a fresh faced younger guy, and he said his bad. He's like a writer in. Oh no, sorry, he's an analyst for the state one of the state commissions. I forget which one, but it's one of the finance commissions. Uh, so, it's not a bad place to be. It's just a fellow state worker.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, there's this other woman who's insufferable. Why is she insufferable? She will. It's sort of like you don't tell her the truth because you're polite and insult her, but also like if you do like say like, hey, stop lying about what you do, or stop lying about being friends with me, but she doesn't listen. In this case, she kind of talks to you like you're good friends so that you'll talk back like good friends and maybe share info or just
Oh, she
like
like digging for
sort
info and
maybe it's no. I think I would compare it more to manifestation. Talk to everyone like you're already friends, and you'll be friends, and call them your friends. But that's insufferable and actually makes everybody dislike you and never want to be your friend.
So they're just being,
Uh,
you
at least
know,
that's my take.
I see. So they're just trying to cozy up to you so that you,
Yeah.
what? Don't criticize them, don't insult them, don't throw them under the
Well, as
bus or
she's
something.
starting to run for office and just start her bare bones council campaign, which it's just going to be her, I can guarantee. Um, she when I walked in and or she finally like kind of saw me and walked up to me. She kind of said like, Dan, if I knew then in 2017 what I know now, you would have won. Referring to the fact of like she was
Okay.
talking like she helped me run for mayor.
Okay.
Because then she turns to the other guy who I know well, and she's like, "Oh, I helped him. I always did everything with my current housemate. He brought her in, but it's only because like she's would just keep showing up or whatever. And but she thinks she helped me run for mayor. Like she actually helped me. And I sort of had to like stop it because we were in council chambers at City Hall. I'm just like I'm not going to yell or I didn't want to make a fuss, but basically like I wanted to like say you did not help me. You did not do anything. Don't talk like that. Instead I give her the silent treatment for the most part, but it's like, "Oh, uh-huh. Yeah, yeah." I just give her one word answers
Yeah. You just didn't want to call her out and
or
embarrass her.
yeah, reaction. Yeah. No, cuz she's a person, she's the kind of person who doesn't have any shame.
I see.
So like you could call her out and she just doesn't pay any mind.
Just laughs it off. Yeah.
Or something. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, something like that. I mean, it's just sort of annoying because because I never had to think about her because I didn't see her for the last 6 years. Because she's a talker. She talks about she's doing this and that, but she doesn't actually do anything. This time she's showing up to a lot of things and actually I think helping out in various contexts, including like the social justice center. She was taking pictures at the potluck I attended. And so she's showing up at all the things I'm showing up to. It's citywide
Just
anyway.
always there, huh?
And yeah, I'm just like for the last month or so, like she's been showing up everywhere, including this meeting. And it was like a homeostasis thing. It's like she has no reason to be here.
Hmm.
Why is she here? She's like, oh, I'm talking for Keith here. I'm gonna, because he's another guy looking to be on the board. He's not gonna get it because everyone hates him. He's out of touch, but he's I don't know, he's knowledgeable and exciting. But she wasn't going to comment for me, and I wouldn't want her to. She's totally cringe. And she doesn't script herself. She doesn't plan anything. She thinks she's the type of person who thinks she's so charming. And but how do you tell an asshole like that they're not charming and they'll
Yeah.
believe you?
Yeah.
Because she's so full of herself and so in her own head or world that she doesn't respond even when you call her out. So it's like it's not worth calling her out. Even though she doesn't do anything particularly like asshole-ish, but just the whole like showing up and being obnoxious. So it's just embarrassing to everybody around her. And if you're polite, I risk maybe looking like I'm associated with her.
Hmm.
But I simply have to just lean over and say like, I hate her guts. Don't.
Oh no.
I'm just being polite. And then of course everyone on the council does the same thing. So I think that there's a recognition of the game that you're playing. That when someone goes up for public comment and makes a fool of themselves, that you simply nod and say, "Thank you for your comment."
Yeah. Thank you for your comment. Moving on.
And soon on,
Aw.
and someday I'll be on that side of the mic.
It's too bad you can't redirect that energy somehow. Because I mean, if she's got the energy to show up to all these things and like mingle and make connections and stuff, too bad you can't
Yeah,
really direct it towards
it
something more
it's not.
productive.
It's sort of unhelpful, and it's unclear how to make her more helpful because you
Yeah.
can say, "Oh, you need to be trained," or Let's help you,"
Yeah.
but she doesn't. She won't
It just does,
accept your
doesn't
instruction.
register. Yeah.
She won't accept your instruction. She doesn't accept what other people tell her because she spent like years talking about how she's going to get a law degree and take the LSAT or something.
Sure.
But she would not even register to take it. She wouldn't study, or she would. I
Yeah.
think she was
Interesting
registered to take
strategy.
it, or she was registered to take it, but she thought she was gonna like study for it in the 3 days prior.
Ha!
Like really clown shit. And 8 years later, kind of acting like she's wiser and more mature, but she talks in the same way, and the vibes are gone. The
Yeah.
vibes are not there, and
It's a shame.
and from what my housemate tells me, like she will say, like, "Oh yeah, I'm his friend." It's like don't tell people I'm your friend.
Oh
I'm
man.
not your friend.
Oh.
It's just
See,
sort of people that are like, it's this culture of a main street where people live there and they're always going to live there.
yeah.
It's their home.
Yeah.
Even when they're broke, even when like they're deadbeats, they will still stay in this neighborhood, even if it's like gentrified. But I suppose their presence there actually keeps it from being gentrified. Because right now that main street, Lark Street, is actually in a really rough way.
Hmm.
There's constant vacancy. Um, the business improvement district, is just dead in the water right now.
Sure.
Which, if you overheard my housemate on the phone,
Did
if he's
not
yelling
know.
on the phone, it means it's about the bid, because he wants to take it over, but
Yeah.
there's some political difficulties in doing that.
Really?
It's sort of that it's sort of that paradox where you work under the person who's screwing up, so you either work hard to prove you work hard and are competent, but when you do, it only makes them, the
They take the
manager,
credit.
look good.
Yeah.
Or rather, the fact that the if you work hard and the bid is not crashing and burning, then there's no reason for the board to replace the director. So how do
It's
you
just
become the director? They
yeah.
have to quit. They have to leave, which is how the socialists took over United Tenants. Is that the current, like the director quit or left or had to leave? I think it was more of an emergency though. It wasn't a political takeover. It
Hmm.
was just that there was an emergency. The old guard, or the current director, left, and so the volunteer, two runs down, who happened to be a socialist, stepped up and became the new director, and then they started tending organizing properly
Wow. That's lucky.
and fighting for rent control, which the entire council is on board with, but are now split about how to proceed because of various court rulings that fuck that up and make it so. Basically, the court's always going to rule that you have to prove there's a need for rent control, and the bar is so high for what constitutes need.
Oy.
So you need a study to show that there's a high enough vacancy. The vacancy rate has to be high enough, right? That's what proves that rents are too high. Not whether how many people are on the street, but whether there's a high enough vacancy rate, right? Because obviously, if they were if people could have, well, at least that's the logic. So
Sure.
if the vacancy rate is shown to be, as it currently is, 8% and not 10%, then it's not high enough for rent control. It's 8%. It needs to be more than 10. And so now there's sort of like but because just getting
Trying
the
to do
vacancy
that
study
math.
done was a 2-year teeth pulling process where the mayor wasn't for it, so she wasn't properly funding it. She wasn't putting enough money down to hire the right firm. So then the city had to conduct the vacancy study. The city meaning the neighborhood department.
Ugh.
And they were doing it on their own time, with limited funds.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't hire like extra staff or whatever. Um and man, did they run into problems, because you had a lot of landlords not cooperating. And you had what was the percentage? 20% of the landlords in the study basically lied by saying like they want to be exempt, right? But even though, and here's the kicker: the vacancy study, if a municipality is going to conduct one in New York, they can only count properties that haven't been renovated since 1972.
Oh, what? What are
So
these
only
arbitrary standards?
it was so oh my god, and actually the thing is that year was picked arbitrarily, and there were also other arbitrary things in play, of which landlords could claim they don't need to be counted, that their units don't need to be counted in the vacancy. So you have all these owners who may have vacant units, and but because they just fixed them up or something, then that doesn't count because it's not affordable or it doesn't I don't it's just so a portion of the
This
council
seems like
is
a
like,
mess.
instead of doing another vacancy study and going through this all over again, let's just focus on state policy. You know, they're all on this. They're all on board for needing. They're all on board for the policy of rent control. But how you get the rent control? It's so we're in a capitalist polity. So you can't really do these uncapitalist things. It's sort of the problem with those policies, though. Those are the kinds that socialist lefties are kind of organizing for. It's I think my approach in my campaign, and if I'm governing on city council, my initiatives will be purely about trying to create post-capitalist space and not regulating the market.
Yeah, I think
Trying
that should be the priority. But I think regulation has a place too. I kind of like what St. Paul has done with their rent stabilization. I'm sure there are still loopholes, like it says here for the self certification increase exception available for 3 to 8%. So that's for self certifying landlords. I don't know all the details of it, but I'm sure there are ways that you can.
self-certifying,
Yeah,
huh?
exactly. So how much are they going to chuck up on that? Um, but the standard allowable increase is only 3% per year, just across the board for all of St. Paul. So like,
Did you know if you have a child, um, an infant, you can start a business in their name and use their picture for the
yeah,
business. Maybe this was just there's this article of how rich capitalists do this. They start a business. They charge their sorry. You start a business and you hire your child. You pay your child at minimum $7,000 as a model, and that becomes tax deductible income. And some that's money you can put into an escrow or something,
sure,
and then it becomes non-taxable. And then if you put that into a money manager account, then 30 by the time they're 30, they're a millionaire. It becomes $1 million, or maybe 50 years, whatever.
still,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's so many little
yeah.
fun
Warren Buffett
rich
started at
people.
11.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so many fun rich people loopholes and ways to squirrel away money tax free. It's great. Great system we got.
It encourages us to be capitalists.
Yeah, yeah, just
What do you know?
exploit the hell out of other people.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
um,
there's this other YouTuber or streamer that I've been not addicted to, but obviously I've been shown a lot of. What's his name? Hold on.
is he a fairly recent guy or
Yeah, it seems so. He streams on everything. Javon Bradley.
not a name I'm familiar with?
Yeah, I think he just started a year or so ago, or earlier this year. His format's pretty basic. It's sort of like a rolling call-in show,
Interesting.
but he's doing it on stream all day, or at least a good portion of the day. He has a morning and an afternoon segment, I guess, and then he posts kind of 3 or 4 clips of the best calls. What he does is he has a list of topics, topic statements. One will be like trans women are women, communism better than capitalism, really basic stuff. And he has his own script of nested or branching path debate points, arguments to throw back at anyone who calls in, because assuming that anyone who calls in is just some know nothing right winger
Sure.
or moderate, whatever, liberal, and they were going to say a certain number of things, or whatever he says, they say
Nice.
Javon can respond with his like three things and just kind of either repeat
He's got the
or play
dialogue
off.
tree
He's got
counter
the
to their
dialogue tree.
dialogue tree.
It's
It's
very
pretty worked out.
repetitive. The callers aren't repetitive, though sometimes they are. There's definitely a pattern, especially because it's 5 topics. So the capitalism versus communism. He's admitted he's actually straightforward. He's a council communist.
Okay.
Now in practice, he'll still talk like, well, again, for the views and for the clicks. One of the topic he'll do like one day a week. He'll just be like, Trump is shit. Trump is debunking Trumpers and having
Sure. Sure. Sure.
Trumpers will call in and show how much they don't know anything. But he's a little Socratic about it, so some calls actually end with them kind of, if they're not trolling, realizing that's like, you know what, I am uninformed. I'm just doing it based on a feeling. And he's just like, well, that feeling isn't going to go very far. It's like, why? Well, then don't. So it's sort of like watching some old new atheist content, debate bro shit. But Javon is, I don't know, he's got a different tone than Vosh. He's less of a like full of himself. He'll have panels, so it's not just him. It'll be like these other women or trans women on the panel for like Trans Tuesdays, where it's just trans issues, people calling in. So I'll have some fun turfs call in, or it gets repetitive, obviously, like any content
Sure.
provider. But it's something. It's something a little different than the usual essayist who's just they're all tapped out in a way. Or media analysis again, which also gets pretty repetitive, or at least if you're our age, it's just like we've seen all this, and we can do our own
These
analysis.
patterns, they just keep coming around.
We can
Yeah.
do our own critical cuts for Harry
Sure.
Potter. But sometimes it'll be something that I didn't consider before, but it'll kind of be a stretch. Talking about the fat phobia of Rowling. All the times that like women are fat and that means they're bad, or
Yeah.
they're
Except
bad and they're fat.
her fat phobia was definitely like, it's okay for my side, but their side we need to ridicule them about, because like all the Dursleys, they were always described as fat slobs. But then there's Hagrid, but he's a good guy, but he's a giant, like a literal giant or half giant or whatever.
Half
So it's
giant.
okay that he's fat. So
And Molly Weasley, she's a caring
yeah,
caregiver,
because she's
stay-at-home
cheerful and a
mom.
mother, then that's
She's
okay too.
she uses the jolly,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the fat lady of the Gryffindor painting. Uh,
Right,
she's
right.
just called the fat lady.
Yep, yep.
Did you ever learn her name? I don't
I
recall.
don't.
I'm not
I don't
really
recall.
rereading the
I don't have
books.
that much
Maybe I should
trivia
reread the
knowledge.
books. I just need to
I
remind
mean,
myself how terrible a lot of it is.
yeah,
Um, but obviously some of it's clever, a little
sure.
fun.
She
But I
does all
think
right with the world building at least.
I found myself disappointed in the way things went, where like I was doing the Cho Chang Harry Potter ship, and the fact that it didn't
Yeah, she
even
just
last.
teased that.
She teased the
She's
fuck out of it,
fine.
and
I'll
then
give you
she's
guys
like,
a bone. Yeah, here. But now I'm gonna. I'm
but
surprised she
in
didn't
the
kill her
fifth, and
off
we're
like
talking about the fifth
immediately.
one,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it's like we need a reason for Harry to drop her,
Right,
and it's
exactly.
such a stupid fucking reason.
Yeah, just has to
Something
be
for
that they were meant to
friend.
mingle.
Chang's friend snitched,
Right.
and so now Chang is a undependable person who can't be
Yeah.
given a second chance.
Right. Of course.
Uh, and then she doesn't really play a big part ever again. And now it's Ginny. It's all
Yeah, I don't.
Ginny.
I don't even know if they mentioned her much after that. I
I'm
don't
sure
think she
she
came
took
up.
part in the big battle at the end.
Yeah.
It was something the movies did, like that I didn't like, was that in the final final half,
Big battle. Yeah.
big battle of Hogwarts, most of the Slytherins helped. and they did not want to sell Harry out. And they're
Just
like,
like,
we're not with them, the deaf,
what
basically the children of Deaf Eaters.
what if fascists
But
decided to get a heart?
in the movie, they proudly like, take Filch, take all the Slytherins to the dungeon. The dungeon will be
Oh,
nice. And I'm
yeah.
like, what? There's no redemption? Like, that's even worse than in the book, where half
That's
of them were
fair.
like, no, we want to
That's
help.
fair. That's fair.
We're not with them. We don't want, fuck this.
Yeah.
They want to kill us.
It was
They're
a
going to kill us either
very
way.
it was a very like liberal now and then everybody claps sort of a moment.
Yeah, I don't know. But, anyway, obviously, any sort of video about the terribleness of Harry Potter is always sort of doing a tunnel vision sort of thing. And
Yeah.
you could do the totality of like the ableism and all that, but
Yeah.
it's just, well, yeah, it's just basic liberal bullshit, and
Yeah.
that's what sort of made it successful. It was very mainstream,
Right.
and then the '90s, ableism and this kind of sexism and hell, just homophobia was all very normal.
Very normal, yeah.
It was all very normal. It's not normal after 2010, after all the movies are done.
True enough.
And that's, I guess, it's sad that we can. I think the most fair thing to do is just say this is of its time, and the Harry Potter franchise is not really something you can build off of
Right.
because it's a rotten. It's just of its time. It's like we're
Right.
going to build a MacGyver universe,
Exactly. Yeah.
or we're gonna reboot the A-Team, and we now need an HBO miniseries for
You
the
know,
A-Team
that though I wouldn't put it past some network executive just like
to do.
casting around for some idea, something to grab onto, squeeze a little more
Personally,
cash out of.
yeah. Personally, though, I haven't watched any trailers, but I actually am curious about the Harry Potter miniseries. In a way that I was not interested in the Avatar miniseries. I did watch the first 2 episodes of that. I gave it a chance, and
Yeah.
I was like, I'm
No
not
no
enjoying
good.
this.
Uh,
I'm not enjoying it. Um, it's designed and produced for people. It's that executive's dilemma of like, you've got this franchise, and are you making this for the
invested a
established
lot
fan base, or are you making it for people who've never seen any Avatar
for
movie?
sure.
So you sort of make something for the you don't make a one-to-one live action, because that's, to me, that's boring too.
So
So the Harry Potter movies were doing that. So that's sort of why I don't like have to watch them over and over.
yeah, no, I got it.
But I've been feeding the algorithm at work where I've been watching Harry Potter movie clips. I'm like, you know what? This is fun.
Fair enough.
It's funny. I mean, just Radcliffe and Watson and the rest.
Yeah, no, he was fantastic in all those
It's
movies.
fun.
The actors
Even if
themselves
it
were pretty
doesn't,
great.
even if a lot of subplots are dropped, but it's like, you know what? The
You're
the
not going to be
writers
able
don't
to
do.
fit everything either.
They
It's a
drop a lot
separate,
of the bullshit,
yeah,
and the fact that they actually redeemed Cho in a way by changing that. It was they had her snitch, but then you learn that it was truth. They used truth serum on her in
oh,
the
I don't
movie.
remember that detail. Okay,
Now it still doesn't explain why Harry would just never want to date
just
Cho
drop her
again,
forever.
and
Never forgive
why
her.
is she not?
Yeah,
Why aren't they friends later? Because
sure.
it's like, oh, Cho didn't snitch on us. It
Yeah,
wasn't her fault.
interesting.
But
But
that's
so this miniseries is this a post Rowling Harry Potter universe, or is she still having input on this stuff?
good question. I think that's something I could dig around, especially in my free time at work.
Yeah,
I do have things to do there.
get
And I'm
stalked.
also writing my speech for the 20th, and there's other, send emails and things, but a whole laundry list of things to do. I am checking them off a little bit. I've spent the last week or so, though, that I don't know. I'm also kind of just repping here, distracting myself with home stuff. I
Sure.
got into this rhythm of scanning family photo albums again, and I guess that's, maybe it's just because now that, like, I've made the decision to commit to this house, that it's like I want to basically finish the decluttering that I started and haven't really done. Well, I've done here and there, but I haven't, like, the photo album stuff. I was doing last winter, and now that I guess it's winter and cold, let's do the rest of it. And so I'm doing some of that, and I was doing some backyard work because it was 40 degrees, and but now it's be freezing the rest of the winter months. So I guess photo albums, election stuff, or at least preparing, get those lists. Once I have those lists in front of me, I can start imagining and things. And but it's like, what do I put in the? Well, you know what? That's the thing. I kind of wish I took pictures of myself doing all of the various activities I've done. I mean, I do have some. I have I have a radio pitch, so I could make a newsletter where it's just about everything I've done, I suppose.
Sure.
But I think that's something that the guide was against. Just like make it about video issues that people care about in the neighborhood, but then
Sounds
just
fair.
have one line about your take on it at the end.
Yeah.
But then have your picture at the top.
Keep it simple.
Right. Keep it simple, stupid. Simple, simple, simple. Doesn't have to be complicated. Just keep it simple.
Oh, wow. We've managed to run out the clock almost
2 hours.
completely already.
Well, we have 2 to 3 months of catching
We,
up.
we did have a lot of catching up to do. Yeah, this is definitely fun, as it always is.
Sharing what I've been gleaming, and because when I do take notes, I'm getting in the habit of taking notes when I come across something interesting, and then I'm putting it into a what I call this leftist analysis doc, just a
Sure.
Word doc, where I'm just sort of having this running tally of like notes. So if I scribble down a note, I add it to the doc so it doesn't become lost in the shuffle. But then I need to kind of have it printed so then I can kind of grab it from my bookshelf and find it. Otherwise, it's a file on my work desktop. But I was making another logo for the local chapter just based on a suggestion to read, which wasn't a bad one, I guess. And yeah, just how is oh yeah, but in the backyard, I've got all of this because of the fallen tree and the destruction of hedgerow. Got a lot of branch wood, and I'm gonna make hugelkultur beds.
Hey, that'll be fun. You should definitely document that.
Yeah, maybe even now that I know how much the cinder blocks are pretty cheap, I could buy a stack of those and make a real compost pit with put a plank on it.
Cool.
I mean, the city provided compost bin is fine, but it's kind of not so thick plastic, and the top keeps coming off, and I don't know if it's cats or
Raccoons,
neighbor, maybe
yeah.
one of the tenants is putting their compost material in there, but like
Sure.
they're not dealing with the lid on top,
It's
or when
not
they
going back
do,
on.
the whole top comes off because
Oh,
it's
no.
not secure.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I need to duct tape it together. But I don't know how well the duct tape would last. But no, it's duct tape. It is waterproof,
yeah.
right?
It's pretty low risk.
So I can commit and actually finish all the home repairs and things, and so I can think hard about and what I would do long term, because otherwise it was all hypothetical. And checking Zillow for like houses where it's like, oh, I would actually rather live there because it's closer to the supermarket or whatever, but
Sure.
not like situated like here where I'm literally near like the big bus node. Where
That
all
is a
the
nice
bus
spot to
lines,
be. I
my
lived by one
my
of those
father
ones.
chose so well,
Yeah.
situating here, and my mom hated it, but my dad was pretty wise, and I benefit a lot from it, and that's sort of why I don't want to give up this house no matter what.
Oh yeah, totally feel that.
Even
It's a
though the
golden
backyard
spot.
has it's northern exposure, so it's not really great for gardening.
Yeah.
It's covered in ivy right now, so step one is tarping that
It's like
show.
English ivy or something like that.
It's very dark green. I'm not the
Mm.
type to identify plants by looking at them.
If it's like 5 lobes, like a hand, that would be Virginia creeper, also called
Yeah, I
England.
know Virginia
England?
creeper
Oh,
is like
okay.
a big. That's
So
I
there's
don't think
that.
it's.
So there's that, and there's Boston ivy. Those are the two main ivy types that
Uh,
you're gonna see in
well, it
our
basically
climate.
grows like a foot out a year, Um,
Sure.
I try to rake it back, but obviously that doesn't kill it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, got to tarp it
They
at
can be
least. I think.
tenacious.
Would a tarp be enough? A colored tarp?
As long as you get those roots covered really well, and
I don't know where the original root is.
yeah, well, I mean, it'll at least if you keep it long enough into the summer, it will solarize everything and just it'd be like super greenhouse effect and just kill all the plant, kill all the seeds, and
Yeah.
you can start fresh without chemicals. Um, can
That would mean having the lawn covered for a whole year.
well, at least part of the season, at least part of the summer, you'll be able to
Uh,
tell when things are good and dead. But
okay.
yep, it it's a long term commitment
Well, I
for at
know
least one
any
season.
gardening growing season is very much limited to the summer,
Yeah, yeah,
because we wouldn't have enough sun exposure otherwise.
for sure.
That's why my father, it was just trees, lilac bushes, and the lilacs he didn't really prune them at all, so they're very overgrown and choking themselves. So I
Lilacs are
don't want to
nice,
just
but not you can get lilac tea out of them, but not a lot else. You can always grow
true
ferns for like fiddleheads. That's something that would thrive in that shade just fine. Fiddleheads are
ferns.
yeah, the new shoots are edible. You can cook them like greens.
Interesting.
I don't know about every single species, but it shouldn't be too hard to figure out which ones are the tastiest.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities,
For sure.
and
Always a good plant to fit in any niche.
a lot of year ahead of me. And just looking back at this year, I mean 2024,
Yeah.
it
What a year.
I it seemed really long.
It
I
really
look
did.
back and I've done a lot this past year,
Yeah.
and between the presidential campaigning, the decluttering of the house, which really started last October, November, but there's a lot of steps involved throughout the year. Vacation to Chicago and all. We've covered all of this over
Yeah, yeah.
the last 20 episodes. It's been a long year. And I think my theory is, I'll end with this, that the 2020 to 2023, not a lot was happening because of the pandemic. Kind of history slowed down. There was just less happening, or maybe, and also combined with sleepwalking Biden causing a
Oh God.
sleepwalking in the body politic. With the success, with this year's events and the reelection of Trump, it's like the rubber band, the spring is snapping back,
Yeah.
and everybody is awake and active and doing shit again. Or at least there's like everything's a lot of things are moving. Like hell, even the Ukraine war. It seems like whoever's winning has changed like month to month now. Where yeah, I won't say more than that, but it's mentioned by other people.
Yeah.
Other people notice.
Interesting to see
uh,
which way that goes when Trump takes over.
well, I know the anti-war, pro-Russia, organizations are pointing out that half of Ukrainians, when polled, now want peace, even if it means giving up territory.
Really.
Um, it's not a full
That's
majority
understandable.
yet,
No,
but
that's hey,
it's
that's
like
understandable, man.
53% versus 20 that want to continue.
Sure. Yikes.
Uh, so at least there's a whole like you can't just say the Ukrainian people
Don't want to give up, yeah.
don't want to give up their God given.
Ah.
Don't ask, and whatever.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Because it's only escalating, and when Putin says like we might use nuclear weapons, it's like there's a certain amount of activists basically kind of say like we should believe him.
Yeah, you at least
You
got
know,
to take it seriously.
you got to take that seriously enough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Certainly not in a way that Democrats are.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, was Biden giving Hillary the Medal of Honor or something?
Oh,
Or
uh,
was that a meme? I was seeing.
I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised at this point. He's just completely shameless and you know checked out. So
Pardon the son.
yeah,
Um,
All right.
what else is he doing? Anyway, okay, yeah. Good night
Have a
and
good
good
one.
luck.
Yep. Thanks so much. All right, that was Dan Platt of the Albany Greens. Exciting things happening for him. Before I go, a bit of housekeeping. I know the beginning of this stream, the first like half hour, there was no sound. So I plan on going into YouTube. If you've been watching on YouTube, I will be taking down that live stream, uh, and then editing and re-uploading without that that big patch of silence. Otherwise, it'll be just the same. But it will mean that you'll lose all the links that I shared during the stream, unfortunately. Um, but you'll just have to type them in manually because they will still show up on the screen. They're just not going to be in the comments. I think next time I'm gonna kind of rejigger things to go back to Restream itself because I'm just having a lot of issues with OBS right now, which is the service that I use to stream. It is not connecting up well with Restream to stream to all these various channels that I'm on. It's not updating the title like it used to. It's not it keeps defaulting the audio output, and then I end up losing minutes here or even up to a half hour like tonight because I just haven't checked every last thing. I shouldn't have to check things when I go live. I don't like having to tick a bunch of boxes just to make sure that it's going to do what it says it's going to do. So one way or another, we will get things up and running, but it should be smoother sailing in the future. I'm going to figure out how to use Restream as I used to be. I think I should be able, since this is an in-browser video streaming service, this Google Meet, I should be able to connect with Dan because that was the reason I had given it up a while ago, is because Dan was just having such trouble connecting directly with the Restream. But I think we can still do Restream and use Google Meet if need be. So just to let you know, in case you're wondering where this video went or you want to go back to it to look something over again, taking down the live stream on YouTube. Everything else, all the other places, Facebook, Twitch. I guess that's the only place I stream now: Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Because X makes you pay for it now. Yeah, another monetizing feature from X, the Do Everything app. So I'm like, yeah, screw it. I don't care about streaming to X. Never was really an important platform to stream on anyway. So I don't do that anymore. But anyway, yeah, if you, I'm not going to change the ones on Twitch because they just disappear. Not going to change the one on Facebook because it's just too tedious to re-upload videos to that. But if you are looking for this video from YouTube, once again, just look for the re-upload. And it should say episode 31 because it keeps putting it out as episode 30, even though it is definitely not. It is left field episode 31. That's all I got for you tonight. Thanks for everyone that tuned in. Thanks for everyone that commented. I'm sorry your comments didn't show up. Yet another thing that I'm not crazy about OBS is it seems to not be picking up comments from all sources. So we're going to try again with Restream for that reason and many others. But until next time, could be a week, could be a couple weeks. I think I'm going to try and make it in a week if Dan is amenable to that. We will see, just because it's going to be the short window before I'm back in the thick of grad school. And at that point, who knows how much time I'll have. Should be a lighter semester, but you never know. Anyway, thanks for joining. Have a great night. See y'all.